Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the May 6, 2015 meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission. First item is a roll call. Member Vincent Laria. Yes. Member Nick Molation. Yes. Member Vincent Camerata. Yeah. Member James Sabone. Yeah. And I'm Andrew DeSantis, Chair. And absent is Member Joseph Lavalley. He's on his way. And also Member Ann Raponi. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of March 4th, 2015. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. And I'd just like to take a minute to welcome my newest member, Member Vincent Laurier, to the board. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome aboard, Vin.
Next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing notice of intent, DEP file number 0610656, Beverly Street, construction of two duplex residences on Beverly Street by Humphrey Street, LLC. We had a site visit this past Saturday, the 2nd. And the floor is yours, Peter. Introduce yourself, please, and make sure the mic's on.
Yeah, the mic appears to be on. If it's green, it's on.
I believe so, yes. Yeah, it sounds like it's on.
Let me just get this set up.
Yeah, take your time.
For the record, my name is Peter Ervin. I'm with Hayes Engineering, and I represent the applicants in this matter. As we left it last time, we kept the hearing open. We were looking to gain some additional information and also go on the site walk, which was held last Saturday. And I have a few additional pieces of information I would like to submit to make them part of the record. First of all, I mentioned on the site visit that the situation on the ground today is much drier looking than it was at prior times I've been there, and there's actually a new growth of plants that started to come up, and I did happen to be going through my files and noticed...
I don't think the microphone's on, or you're not speaking into it, Peter.
You speak directly into it.
Yeah, okay. I did happen to notice in my files that I had an old picture that depicts what it's like, and I'd like to submit that as part of the record. In addition, it was requested by the DEP that we determine whether or not our opinion from the Army Corps is still valid. And I said that I would write a letter to the Army Corps inquiring about that, the validity of the prior letter that they'd sent. I have a copy of that letter that was sent to them. And then I was asked to have our botanist take a look at those saplings that were growing and see what they are. And they're really of two species. She says that they're the species are silver maple and sugar maple that are growing up, and both of which are indicators of a drier environment that had been there historically. Just to submit this stuff, we gotta walk all the way around here. That doesn't work too well. I'd like you to pass this around. I don't name one of them, but this is what it looked like. And then this is what it looks like today when my botanist took a picture of it.
Okay.
And you can see there's a significant growth right in the low area there. And there's the Army Corps letter.
Thank you.
We were also asked to look at a couple of other issues that the department had brought up when they reviewed it. One of the ones was the matter of the total disturbance. In the application, we talk about disturbance of 5,000 feet, and we had showed an area of Phragmites, 6,000 feet. We had showed an area of Phragmites removal outside the proposed structure, the proposed structures only cover a little over 3,000 square feet. The DEP memo mentions overshadowing as being the disturbance. Well, the overshadowing is only the roughly 3,000 feet of the two structures themselves. The 6,000 square feet of disturbance was the Phragmites removal. I don't know whether the department considers the Phragmites removal part of a disturbance or not, because the department has encouraged the removal of Phragmites as an invasive species. So that's something that they would have to determine. But what they were talking about was what the threshold is for a water quality certificate. And that's something that would have to be filed for after we get a permit from you people anyway. So the decision would have to be made, but we need to get a permit from you people before we can go on to that next step. As far as they also mentioned an opinion from Army Corps of Engineers, I've submitted to you a letter that we wrote. But again, if a further action was required by the Army Corps of Engineers, it would have to be after an action from you people anyway. We'd have to have a permit from you people to do it. The other comment that the DEP made was that they didn't want enclosures on the lower level, and we've not proposed that. We've proposed that these structures would actually be built on pilings so that there'd be no enclosure on the lower level, which would occupy floodplain. And the last issue was one that Andy brought up relative to the new floodplain. Now, I went online again and looked at the current map that's online, and it's still elevation 7 in this area. The elevation 13 is the V zone that's out at the beach, which is a velocity zone and accounts for the waveform. But in this area, it's an A zone, and the A zone is still at elevation 7 on the new NAVD 88.
I disagree with you, Peter. I read that as elevation 12.
I just looked it up. I mean, you can, I'll send you along a copy of it. I have a lot of trouble with that website getting stuff to print out. I don't know if you do, but I'll get it printed out and show it to you. It's in our area that's back by Beverly Street. There's a line of demarcation where the V zone stops, and the V zone actually stops at the beach. And the FEMA will tell you that a V zone is limited by scaling the map, and an A zone is the still pool elevation. It's determined by elevation, and we're clearly in the area that's elevation 7. As far as the applicant is concerned, if there is a change in the elevation, before we get building permits and before we build these, I think he's indicated a willingness to go ahead and build for that elevation. But if you look at the map, it is still elevation 7 for the A zone. Now, we're in the A zone.
You're in the A zone, and as you head towards Revere Street, you see it is marked in the A zone as elevation 12.
Okay, well, let me take this out. I mean, I'm only going by, when you go on the new FEMA website and type in
the location.
Revere,
Yep.
bingo, you look at it, it's right there. I'll get it copied and send it along to be part of the record. I think that's responsive to the things that we said that we were going to go and collect as far as information is concerned. And I don't think we have anything further to try and put in the record.
Okay. I'd like at this point to recognize Member Joseph Lavalley and Member Ryan Raponi has joined us.
Joe.
That you have joined us.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we
And we have a new member joining us tonight, Ann and Joe, Mr. Vincent Lauria.
Got two Vincents on here, so be careful.
I'm aboard, Mr. Lawrence. Glad to have you.
Okay, let's get back to the matter at hand. When we pass those down, Vinnie? Yeah. This is additional information that Mr. Ervin has provided. A couple of photos, one from when they applied years ago and one from current, and also a copy of his submission to the Army Corps. I didn't look
Yes.
at it just
Yeah.
now. Let's let the other members.
Yeah, I just wrote Karen Kirk Adams. I had written them. They actually came out and made a decision. I met with them. They came out and made a decision, and they just did it verbally. I wrote Karen Kirk Adams back in the 2010, and she wrote back, and that's what was submitted in the original package we submitted.
Yep,
I
I
wrote
have
her
that.
and asked her to confirm that determination was still valid.
Okay. All right, let's see if there's anybody else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this project or in opposition. Sir, come up to the microphone. State your name, your address.
My name is Tony Tiuli. I live at 50 Oak Island Street. I'm an abutter to this property. And as of, I have some pictures of the land as of April 4th, when there was water still in that field.
Okay, why don't you bring those forward and give them to Mr. Lauria so he can take a look and pass them along?
I've been an abutter to that field for 41 years. The field has never been without water. It acts as a collection for all the stormwater on Beverly Street and Oak Island Street. Now, to respond to the pictures that you just received from Hayes, where it shows that there's a stand of trees in there now, I can speak to that. Arcadia Street, about 5 years ago, was reconstructed with new storm drains. They put a new storm drain at the corner of Oak Island Street and Arcadia Street, and the rest of Arcadia Street, which takes all the stormwater from the boulevard and Oak Island Street as far as Arcadia. Previously, all of that water went in to this particular field at 3 and 7 Arcadia Street, went around the house and into the field. Well, yes, a lot of that water has diminished because of the storm drain now that's taking it. None of the storm drains on Oak Island Street right now are operative. They haven't been for 20 years. You can go down there and look at them yourself. None of them work. I realize it's not City of Revere problem, but it's a problem to all of the residents when none of these storm drains work. So all of that water goes down into Arcadia Street or to Beverly Street. Beverly Street is a stormwater collection zone. These pictures that I just sent, I apologize, they're black and white, but you'll see in the center of the photograph, there is water in that stand of trees, those saplings. And it was there on April 4th. If you go there now, you can see where the water was because everything is sort of like a mud in where the trees are. I just feel that building on that land is going to threaten me and my neighbors unless something is done to collect stormwater and sewage. The sewage there surcharges when we get an inch of rain, 2 inches of rain. The field fills up when we have a heavy thunderstorm in July and August. So it's not something that just goes away, and it's a fortuitous accident that if you went down there this past weekend to take a look, it was dry. I knew it. When you guys arrived, I knew what you were going to see. You go, oh, there's no water here. But the residue is there. So that's all I really have to say. I feel that if this project were to go forward, some remedial action has to take place before a building can go up there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else who'd like to speak? Sir? Yep, come up. Introduce yourself.
My name is Julia Sokol. I'm one of the two owners of the property. We all met there on Saturday morning. Obviously, it was dry. I understand the neighbor's concern that that was an anomaly. His point is certainly taken. I'm actually looking more to address. We've heard a lot about sewage issues and that this would cost the city tax money because there'd be 4 families here and we need to send them to school. I just want to, you know, those aren't really issues I think directly impact this hearing. I don't want that to be misconstrued. If there's a sewage issue, in my opinion, I think the city has a sewage problem there. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. There's no drainage there, according to the neighbors. I haven't seen it. According to all the neighbors, when there's excessive rain, the manhole covers lift up. That problem exists today, and it's going to exist whether we build or not. It needs to be addressed, and there's a certain bias towards us building on buildable land because there's this existing sewer issue. But, you know, with all due respect,
Well, quick question, though, on that comment. Won't building, you know, when you construct a building, you're supposed to improve existing conditions with your stormwater plan. So you're saying there's an existing problem. Adding new buildings isn't going to make the problem better. It's going to make it worse, generally speaking.
I'm speaking towards a sewer issue. As far as the drainage, that's why Hayes is here and dealing with that. But I view the sewer problem as a pre-existing condition that needs to be, whether we build or not, needs to be fixed. And if we're going to be there and add 4 more families worth of sewage,
It's going to make it worse.
Perhaps marginally, but I don't think that that's going to make...
Marginally or not, it's going to make it worse.
Okay, fair enough. There'll be 4 more families there, but the problem exists. It needs to be fixed. I think we're kind of missing the bigger issue. That I met at least 5 people this weekend who have a sewer problem, and we have no home there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak? Come up to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Yes. My name is Jeff Mary. I live at 22 Beverly Street. I just wanted to talk about current sewage and drainage issues there, and at least as far as what we witness, I live there with my daughter Luna and my wife. I also have a written statement by another resident of Beverly Street, and I've been authorized to read it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll start with that. My name is Elaine Avalon, and I live on 9 Beverly Street, Revere, Mass. I have lived at this address since 1969. I'm concerned with the overflow of sewage from Oak Island Street, which runs down Beverly Street and across the lagoon at the opposite side of street where these new homes are to be built. There are migrating ducks who visit year after year. This lagoon is filled with water 75% of the time. And I think she might be a little bit conservative with that estimate, if I don't mind saying. My other concern is the weeping willow tree, which has been there as long as I can remember. That tree absorbs a huge amount of water in this area, and to remove it would cause even more flooding, which I think has kind of been addressed a little bit. I can attest to the fact that the sewer cover at the end of Beverly Street does not indeed rise up and down when there is heavy rain. I'm asking that you do not grant this permit. So those are the written words of Elaine, who unfortunately could not be here.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
Is that better? I'm sorry, I wasn't speaking.
You got to speak into it, that's all.
Sorry about that.
Yep, that's fine.
As far as my own experiences there go, I can attest. I've been there a little over 10 years, and anytime that we have a moderate to heavy amount of rain, the manhole cover right in the middle of the street from my house, it acts like a fountain, and literally water is just gushing up, 6 inches up, and the street floods on a regular basis. This happens on a regular basis. Everyone in my family owns waterproof boots that we need to just actually make our way down the street if we're just walking around in our own neighborhood. And once again, this happens every time that we have medium to heavy amount of rains, sometimes even with a small amount of rain, the same situation will arise. I did want to bring up my daughter Luna, and she's going to, I was not there to witness this, so I felt it was appropriate for her to actually attest to this particular situation.
Okay.
Luna? Say your name and address.
My name is Luna Mary. I live on 22 Beverly Street, and
Okay, sorry, honey. Can you talk about what happened with you and Mommy going to school last November?
well, I showed my mommy.
Speak into the microphone,
Speak in the
Luna,
mic-
please.
I
Yeah,
showed
right in
my
front. There
mommy
you
the
go.
flood, and then she saw it, and she had to pick me up, even though I was wearing my Hello Kitty rain boots, and the water was over my rain boots.
So she had to carry you to down the street, correct? Because of the flooding? I'd like to submit into evidence my daughter's rain boots at the time.
And then I saw something that caused the flood. I think it was a fire hydrant, but I'm not sure what it was. I forgot.
Well, that's okay. But in any case, there was flooding going on, correct? And it wasn't draining? And you had to be carried, right? Okay.
Okay, you did great.
Oh, I think it was a sewer cap that
The
caused the
sew-
flooding.
Well, the water was coming up from the sewer cap? Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much,
Jeff,
Councilwoman and
could you spell
Councilman.
your last name for me?
That's Merry like Merry Christmas,
Okay,
M-E-R-R-Y.
that's how I spelled it. Okay, so,
Okay. Thank you very much.
anybody else who would like to speak? Councilor Powers?
I'm speaking as an opponent.
Excuse me, John?
An opponent, I'm speaking.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
as was Mr. Tatuli, who preceded the other gentleman.
Okay.
I represent the area as the ward councilor. I've represented that area for 16 years. And for 16 years, I've witnessed year after year after year the flooding down on Beverly Street, Arcadia, Ellerton, York, and the water coming in from Oak Island Street, which happens to be a state highway. We were fortunate enough 4 or 5 years ago to prevail upon the mayor to allocate monies to repair the catch basins on Arcadia, York, Elton, and Argyle Streets, to increase the capacity of the lines down there. And all of that water traditionally runs into the Eastern County ditch. Just this past several months ago, we had an occasion down there to have the tide gate malfunction out at the B&M tracks. The trash rack down there on North Shore Road wasn't working properly. And as a result, we had all of those streets down there backed up with water. But aside from that, traditionally, Beverly Street, when there's a large amount of water down there, rain or otherwise, it surcharges probably 8 to 9 inches off of the street. And one of the reasons for that is that when the MWRA is overloaded, their capacity over there, they decrease the amount of water going into their system. And in areas that are affected by sewerage problems and drainage problems, those areas are affected tremendously. I mean, I've been down there. It's not a nice thing to see residents down there walking in 7 or 8 inches of stormwater or sewerage water out in the middle of the street, not to mention what's going into their basement. Mr. Tatuli just showed you a photo. I've seen it, water in there constantly, year after year after year. You might get down there now and you might see it dry. That's because the water has dried up. But you get a heavy rainstorm, you're going to get stormwater and sewerage in that area. The people that live in that area down there have a right to go to work in the morning, come home in the evening, and not find their basements loaded with sewerage. I wouldn't like it, and I don't think you ladies and gentlemen would like it either. It's not a good thing. I've come up here for the past 16 years, and different people have come up here looking to build on that lot, and I've asked this commission time after time to deny them until something can be done down there to decrease the sewerage and the stormwater. I don't know what that is. I'm not an engineer. But I know until it is done, that they should be denied building down there. At Eastern County Ditch, I'm sure you've seen it, Mr. DeSantis. There's all kinds of debris in there. We're not allowed to side cast anymore when we clean it. It's practically impossible to clean it. It just backs up and backs up and backs up, and it's not doing what it was intended to do. So until that's rectified, whether that's next year, the year after, or 10 years from now, I would ask this board to deny any building on those lots. You're talking about 4 units down there, two-family homes. This brings up another question. Parking, where's the parking? Not that that has anything to do with this board, but to park on that property, I would imagine you'd have to fill in some places. And that would cause more problems. So once again, I would ask this board to deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? Speaking to the microphone, please. Introduce yourself.
My name is Deirdre Washington, and I live at 854 North Shore Road. What I wanted to say is I'm one of the people that have come home to my basement filled with water or my basement wet. It's listed as a 2-bedroom home, and the basement can't be used as a bedroom because of the water problems in the area. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Go right ahead, Peter. It's your right to do that.
I think some of the testimony that we've heard is consistent with what we determined, or the biologists determined, in that there is a stand of trees that are growing there. And frankly, the photograph is inconsistent with the testimony that it's flooded 75% of the time, and that's conservative. If it was flooded 75% of the time, it would have looked like the photograph that I submitted earlier that I said was 5 or 7 years ago, because there's no oxygen, it can't get going. That's why you have the darkened leaves. That's why you have no growth in that area, because it was flooded. And I think we've heard the reason why. It's because of the drainage improvements that were made in the area that it floods less than it does. As far as the construction of these 2 dwellings changing the flooding, we have regulations now as to how these houses can be built to prevent just that. We're not allowed to have living space as low as these people have described. You can't have any habitable space below the elevation. You say it's elevation 12, I say it's elevation 7, but my elevation is 4 feet above the street in front of the site. So you're talking about construction that would not be allowed today and probably should not have been allowed when some of those houses were built. I'm not familiar with the history of it, but the flood elevations here at this elevation go back to at least the mid-1980s. We've identified this as an ILSF. We've never said it didn't flood. We hear all this testimony about it floods. We came to you and said it was an ILSF. What is that under the DEP regulations? It's an area that floods. And for that reason, we're not allowed to fill it in. That's why we have to build on stilts. As far as stormwater management, it does not apply to the construction of 2 duplex dwellings. But the way we're constructing this, it really doesn't make a difference, because we haven't taken away any of the flood storage area that's in this area that's in blue, which was a historic water line, a water level that I don't think it's got to recently, just based on my partners looking at the vegetation. But it's still going to be available to act as storage, and it's still available for the infiltration to go into the ground, which is what happened to the water that was in the basement earlier this year. I'm not familiar with the tide gate situation, but the reason for the tide gates is to try and keep ocean water for coming up to that still pool elevation. And maybe that's something that should be looked into in terms of the flooding. I'm not familiar with how they were supposed to work or whether they malfunctioned. I know how they work in theory. I don't know what might have malfunctioned, but maybe that's something that the city should be looking into in terms of at least alleviating some of the problems in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else? Members of the commission? Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Comments? Member
Comment.
Saboni?
Question and comment. Peter, you mentioned shading. You had done, you gave me square footage of shading versus direct impacts to IVW.
Well, this isn't a BVW.
IVW.
It's an isolated land subject to flooding.
Okay. I'm reading the letter from DEP file number from Andrew DeSantis.
Yeah, that's what I gave to the commission members as DEP comments. Same thing I sent to you. In fact,
Okay.
I think it says addressed to Peter Ogren of Hayes Engineering, doesn't it?
Right. And you referenced the square footage of shading impacts.
Yeah, the DEP comments said that there was a disturbance of more than 5,000 square feet.
You said, I understand, you're saying it's less than that. Based on what?
I'm saying it depends upon what you consider a disturbance. If the DEP considers a disturbance the removal of the invasive species, then it is over 5,000 square feet and would require a water quality cert. Again, that's a process beyond this after we get this permit that we'd have to do. I don't know that they necessarily consider the removal of invasive species a disturbance because, for instance, when they remove all that Phragmites along the Charles River and it's far over 5,000 feet, I've never seen an EIR or an ENF come out on that because the removal of invasive species is, I think, probably permitted.
That's not what I'm reading here. It says the project will result in the loss of more than 5,000 square feet due to shading impacts.
And I said that that is incorrect.
All right, well, I want to see your shading analysis.
The shading.
I want to see a shading, and I can't stand there and evaluate your shading analysis without looking at it.
Shading, as far as they're concerned, is not the shading analysis that you're thinking of. You're thinking of looking at sun angles and stuff. What they're considering is the amount of ILSF that is actually occupied by the structures themselves, and that's a little over 3,000 feet. The 6,000 feet that they got that determination that it was over 5,000 included an area of removal of Phragmites, which we included outside. That's where the 6,000 came from.
I need clarification on that.
Let me try it again. The footprints of the buildings are a little over 5,000 feet.
Okay.
That's permanent shading.
I heard what you said, Peter. Okay. I'm looking for clarification from the DEP. So ultimately, you know, what I'm going to be asking for is not only that, but also clarification from the Army Corps. You wrote them a letter, but you haven't gotten a response from them yet.
No, that's correct. I only wrote them a letter yesterday.
So
I mean, we only talked about it on...
we can't really make a determination without hearing back from them.
Well, that's why I made the point that both of these issues are issues that are down the road from your permit. If you approve the permit, then we'll have to go to the department and see, first of all, the Army Corps of Engineers and also to the DEP to determine if a water quality cert or if an Army Corps of Engineers permit is necessary. Okay? If we don't get this permit, I know one isn't necessary because we're not going to be allowed to have an activity. So there'd be nothing to go forward with. If we fail to get the permit here and appeal to the state, these issues would be addressed at the state level. So there's nothing to do about it at this time. It's the threshold is a decision from the Revere Conservation Commission.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else with comments or questions? Speak into your microphone, Member Camerata.
Mr. Chairman, getting back to the storage problem. Now, we all know there's a storage problem there, and the builder kind of baffled me a little that he would be willing to cause more storage problem because it's up to the city to repair the storage problem there. Kind of baffled me a little bit.
Well, there's no doubt it's up to the city to solve the problem as a whole, whether they build or not. You know.
But what I'm getting at, he's willing to add to the problem. That's what I'm getting at. I don't like that at all. Sorry.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I waited too long, maybe. Could I ask a question? the builder? You, sir? Yeah. Well, whoever can talk about the plan. I have two questions. Okay? I'm looking at the parking area. That's the shaded gray?
The parking areas are shown, and it's the area that's shaded gray here, here, and here.
And on all of those areas, no fill is going to be added to?
That's correct. That's going to be on at the existing grade.
And the other question, according to that plan, what is that white wedge that's in between the two parking lot, the two lots? That evidently is, yeah.
It's an abutter's property. The property lines are irregular there. I have no idea how that came to be, but the property lines are irregular. The lines in blue are the property line, and that's an abutter's property.
Can I assume that the lay of the land is exactly the same? I'm looking at the left and the right, and there's a green area there.
I'd just like to comment on the building on the left, on the parking on the left, there is some amount of filling that's going there if you look at your plan, the contours on your engineered plan.
Yeah, but not filling in the flooded area.
Yeah, not filling
Yeah,
in the...
okay. I'm sorry, and I should have made that distinction. You're
that's correct. Yep.
There is some fill shown in there, but it's not filling in the land that was flooded, that was the ILSF.
Because of the ILSF, right.
I agree with you 100%, and I should have made that distinction. We're not filling anything in the blue area.
The only thing you're doing in the blue area is, even though the buildings are on piles, there are two enclosures on each house of about, I would say, 50 square foot apiece for each enclosure.
Right, two of those are within that
The
area.
chases for your utilities.
Yes, utility chases.
They're in the center of the foundation?
And the sewer comes out the middle, and both sewer services will be there. The water goes in on the side. And I showed them as little square area, but all it has to be is an insulated pipe. You know that it's, you know,
Yep.
it's de minimis.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
If I could just clarify what I said.
Go right ahead, Mr.
You know,
Sol.
I'm not willing, it's not that I want to, or I'm suggesting we add sewage issues. I'm simply saying the problem exists. You can tell us no. We can never build there, ever. We still are taxpayers. We own 6 lots there. We pay taxes on them. And it sounds like every single resident there says they have a major sewage issue. In fact, I haven't met anyone who doesn't say they have a sewage issue. I'm simply saying the city has to do something. I mean, it's obviously a problem. Whether we build and you guys never see me again or not, I mean, it's a major issue there. It needs to be addressed. Maybe once it's addressed, we can come in here and have a different talk. But it's kind of, you know, we own the land. We're here the same way they are. We just want to build in our land. They already happen to have houses. That's all. It's not that I'm suggesting let's pump more sewage into this because there already is sewage. The problem needs to be addressed whether we build or not. And if we're going to be the drainage for the whole area, then maybe to avoid it, the city should just buy the land from us, and that would be all the drainage for everyone. That's an alternative also, but the problem is very
We
real.
can't speak to that. That's
I understand,
beyond
but
that.
that's what I'm getting at. Not that I'm suggesting we should make anyone's life here any worse, which I definitely wouldn't want to do, nor do I care to. Okay.
My point, you want to take a shot at causing more problems. That's just what I'm driving at. By you building now, you're going to add more problems to it. I just can't fathom that, really. I mean, you're willing to do that. And if you can build there, then we'll still have problems with the storage. So I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
Project on that problem, that's all. I'm not suggesting that.
Well, that's
I
my
just don't think the impact, I think the impact's nominal. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Anybody? Come right up, John.
Just one last comment. I think Mr. Camerata hit the nail right on the head when he said that to add more buildings down there is going to add more sewage. And it is. And maybe someday that problem will be corrected. I don't know. But I know right now it isn't. And I know right now to add more buildings down there, you're going to affect the quality of life for the people that live in that area. Even building on piles. You add a pile in the ground, it's like putting a marble in a glass of water. The level comes up, and comes up, and comes up. And I don't know how many piles they'd be putting in there, but I would imagine they'd be putting quite a few. As far as parking, maybe they're not going to be parking in the area that floods. I don't know. But that whole area down there sort of slopes down and retains water. So parking, and they would be required to put 8 cars on that property. Parking on that property would create a problem for the neighborhood, as well as the building itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything else? What is the will of the commission on this matter? What is the will of the commission?
I'd like to motion to deny. It appears the engineer is familiar with the DEP appeals process, so they're welcome to appeal to the DEP.
Do we have a second on that?
Yep, yes, I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Your application is denied. I will follow it up with a copy of the order and the explanation for denial. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, on behalf of the residents of Oak Island, I'd like to thank you.
You're welcome, John. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a notice of intent, DE file 06106. I think it'll be 60, but the file number hasn't been issued yet. 543 North Shore Road, Pier Repairs, Nigro Family Trust. Victor Molly is here to present. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Victor, introduce yourself. The floor is yours.
My name is Victor Molly. I represent the Nigro Family Trust at 543 North Shore Road. I'm here to ask the board to grant a permit on repairing the existing pier that is built there by my father and at North Shore Marine. And I've previously submitted all of the paperwork and everything I think that would need be to achieve this permit.
Thank you. Any questions for Victor? No questions? No comments?
Comment,
Okay.
we were down on site inspection,
Yep.
And basically, the pier is there already. These are pilings that took a beating this terrible winter that we had, and they were pretty old in the first place, and this is work that has to be done. It's not an expansion. It's just repair and removal and repair, I should say. And again, just for the record now, the pilings, they're taken away by the company?
Yes.
That puts them in?
Yes.
Okay. And they dispose of it? Thank you.
We have a motion to close the public hearing and approve an order of conditions,
Andy, I
which
just
I've
wanted
read. Go right ahead, Member
to, and
Raponi.
then I'll hopefully close the hearing. I wasn't there at the viewing on Saturday, but according to what I read in the specs here, it sounds to me like you're going to really improve and repair, and there's no reason why we wouldn't approve it. And could I make a motion to close the hearing?
Okay, and what, issue an order of conditions?
Subject to the order of conditions.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman, if anybody didn't do it already.
Nope, nobody's ahead of you, Vinnie. All those in favor?
Yes. Aye.
Any opposed? Approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Victor. Next item on the agenda is another pier repair for Ervin Oil Terminals, notice of intent to P file 0610659, 41 Lee Burbank Highway. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll motion.
I second it.
Motion by James Saboni, second by Nick Melanson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Gentlemen, floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, honorable members, good evening. Thank you for having me today. My name is Jeff Neal. I'm a project manager and permitting specialist with CH2 and Hill Engineers out of Boston, Massachusetts. Joining me today in the room is Ervin Oil Terminal Manager Kimball Gorman in the back row. We're here this evening for a notice of intent for the current phase of ongoing maintenance and repair work at the Ervin Oil Terminal on the Chelsea River, located at 41 Lee Burbank Highway. I believe most, if not all of the members were able to tour the site with my colleague, Robert Garrity, who's the lead engineer and project manager for this particular project on this past Saturday. So I believe you are familiar with the location and the site and the scope of the proposed repairs. I believe some of you may be familiar with the recent history of the site and that Ervin undergoes regular and routine maintenance activies to upkeep and rehabilitate the structure so that it remains in good, safe working condition for the sake of ongoing commercial activity and to protect the waterfront and the environment. So I believe the last case before you was in 2011 where you approved similar activities. This time around, the scope includes really three main elements. One are repairs to the piles in and around a breasting dolphin. This would be concrete encasements to an existing structure. The second element of the repairs includes an extension, a timber walkway extension between two existing parts of the pier. And then the third is the replacement of a catwalk, which basically allows personnel to go to the far end of the pier, where a now existing timber catwalk will be demolished, removed, and disposed of properly, and replaced with the steel catwalk really, that functions as an extension to the existing catwalk that was put in place recently. So everything will be done up to industry standards and with the most environmental protection and compliance in mind. We have made application to the Army Corps of Engineers through a pre-construction notification to the Mass DEP, both the Wetlands Protection Program and the Mass Waterways Program. We've successfully notified the abutters as well as the tribes in the region, the Mass Historical Commission, and the Bureau of Underwater Archaeological Resources. And we're in current communication with them. We've also received notice of receipt and then response from the Division of Marine Fisheries, which I believe, Mr. Chairman, you have received. So with that respect, we do request your approval of the notice of intent this evening. I will want to make mention that the Division of Marine Resources did waive the time of year restriction, but we do recognize that they recommended to you to consider the installation of a turbidity curtain to control sedimentation in the waterway. I did want to make a request to all of you to please waive that recommendation for the turbidity curtain because one, speed and moving quickly through this process of construction is probably the best way to limit environmental harm or turbidity in the watershed, in the water body, I mean. By having a turbidity curtain there, we will extend the work window because it's a large device. It needs to be regularly maintained because of the tides. There's a lot of flotsam and jetsam within that waterway anyway. It becomes an ongoing project unto itself to maintain the turbidity curtain. It needs to be moved for the sake of the vessel traffic in and around that construction activity, and in the end will probably delay and lengthen the amount of time that in-water work would have to happen. I think what we're proposing to do is get in and get out as quickly as possible and to do so in an expeditious manner, thereby decreasing our work window and decreasing any opportunity for increased sedimentation.
If we gave you an order tonight without the turbidity curtain, how quickly would the work be done? When would it be finished?
Well, the work window, I think we're looking at 1 to 3 months. Is that correct?
Working around vessel traffic, yes.
Working around vessel traffic. So that's the one contingency that is all contingent upon commercial operation of the plant.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Chairman, may I ask, what is the rationale for the turbidity curtain? Does that have anything to do with spawning of any of the fish in that area? I mean, they must have had a reason for you that they wanted the turbidity curtain in the first place.
The reason in the letter, and I'm happy to recite it if you want me to, is based on their concerns about increased turbidity in the water. Basically, resuspension of small mud particles in the water column during any in-water work, and to confine that within the area immediately around the pier so it does not create a plume that would go up and down the river. That is their concern.
Did they elaborate if there was any contaminants in the area? Or?
No, they did not.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't at the site visit, but I think the last time we were there, did we discuss security? Is there any security involved there? Did you guys have a chain link fence with a locked gate? I'm not sure now.
Yes, there is security, but what is your specific question about it? I think Mr. Gorman will be able to address any specific security question.
I just want to know if you do have security there.
Yes, there is security on the
Okay,
facility.
thank you.
Yeah.
Member Saboni?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, there are issues with turbidity curtains delaying construction. They're difficult to manage, and especially in areas that are tidally influenced, the fact of them going up and down continuously can actually create more of a disturbance at times. So I'm amenable to waiving the requirement for the turbidity curtains, especially since Division of Marine Fisheries, was it Mass Division of Marine Fisheries who wrote the letter
Yes, sir.
that you referenced? They didn't specifically reference any rationale as to why they're concerned about turbidity. I don't know of any fish species of concern in that area.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody in the audience? What is the will of the commission? I prepared an order of conditions. I did not include the requirement for the turbidity curtain, as I hadn't been in the office and I hadn't received the letter yet. I guess they're not into email yet for some reason.
Would you like me to submit my copy to you now? Mr. Chairman?
That's fine. I'm sure it's upstairs and I can grab it.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion to close the public hearing, issue order of conditions?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Who made the motion?
that's Joe Lavelle.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. We'll get this out to you next week.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What else we got now?
Next item is a public hearing, notice of intent, file number DEP, file number 0610657, F-158N reconductoring and F-158N Q-169 DCT separation project by New England Power Company. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You give them to me. Thank you. Introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, I'm Melissa Kaplan from the BSC Group. I'm representing New England Power Company. New England Power Company is proposing to reconductor their F-158 north 115 kV transmission line. It's 4.3 miles from Saugus, from the Golden Hills substation, to Malden, to the Maplewood substation. It's 4.3 miles. The majority of the activities are maintenance. It's repair and replace of wire and structures, in-kind replacement, with the exception of...
Speaking to the mic.
Yes, I will speak into the mic. 3 structures, structures 67, 68, and 84, are actually being replaced with steel structures with concrete caisson foundations. Therefore, they don't qualify for the utilities maintenance exemption as the rest of the work does, because they are slightly increasing in ground disturbance due to the installation of the caissons. A 4th structure is being installed to separate the Q-169 structure from the F-159 structure, which are on a single pole together. That pole will be located in the outer portions of the riverfront area to an unnamed perennial stream. As I said, 67 and 68 are here and here. They're being replaced. The access to install those structures is through the bike path area that's being proposed. I'm not sure if it's been constructed yet or it's about to be. We're hoping we can get this project done before they build the bike path. We estimated about 50 square feet of impacts for these caisson foundations, permanent impacts to those bordering vegetated wetlands. However, during construction, they'll determine the final location of those new structures. Usually they put them about 3 to 5 feet from the existing structure. So it could move closer into the wetland or it could move away from the wetland. So we very conservatively estimated about 50 square feet of wetlands. And I don't know if you're familiar with this area, but these are basically Phragmites marshes. They're not very pristine or pretty. Structure 84 right here. The only resource area that it is near is in the floodplains, therefore it's in bordering land subject to flooding. Again, we approximated very conservatively about 50 square feet or 50 cubic feet of impacts to the floodplain there. That can be compared to about 1 to 2 tires on a car, or 2 cars. It's very minor, can be considered de minimis. Best management practices will be used, erosion controls will be used. We have received our Army Corps pre-construction notification permit, as well as the Mass DEP 401 water quality cert, and we coordinated with the tribes. So those have all been received. Now we're just left with this.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? It's pretty straightforward. We have a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order.
I'll motion to close and issue an order.
I'll second it.
There was a second by Nick, or, yep. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Thank you.
Not bad, huh? Not bad at all.
Next item, agenda is a public hearing notice of intent DEP file 0610658, 151 VFW Parkway, McDonald's Restaurant by Key Point Partners LLC. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Unanimous. Floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Conor Nagel, project manager with VHB. Also with me is Meredith Avery, a wetland scientist, also with VHB. We're representing Key Point Partners on their property at the Wonderland Marketplace on VFW Parkway. More specifically, the proposal to add a McDonald's restaurant in the northeast corner of that plaza, as you can see here. The site is currently a paved parking area. This proposal would add 4,200 square foot roof area and decrease the impervious area on the site by approximately 4,700 square feet. Both of those would improve the quality of the stormwater on the site and reduce the peak runoff in and of themselves. In addition to that, our catch basins will be routed through a storm scepter unit and then plug into the existing stormwater system on site. That's essentially the project. We're not within any wetland zones here. We are within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Not required under that to provide compensatory storage, but under the original MIPA permit for this site, they had committed to providing compensatory storage. So as such, we have added, or we have maintained compensatory storage for what we're adding to the site. I think that's really all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
I'd just like a clarification or elaboration. You're going to have the drainage, you're having your own separators, is that correct?
Correct.
And go ahead.
The existing site, the main drain line is here and connects out to the drain system in the parkway. we're proposing some extra catch basins just because of the landscape islands and whatnot that we've put in there to catch the low spots. We're running those through a storm scepter unit, but ultimately everything connects into the existing system.
Where would the unit be?
The unit we're proposing is right down here.
And then you would be maintaining it?
Yes, it will be maintained by the site. It's on site, yes.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
I have the green cards here.
Okay, I'll take those. Thank you, sir. Okay, prepared an order of conditions for this project. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
That was Vince Camerata's motion, second by Joseph LaValle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Vote in the affirmative.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
McDonald's really moving, aren't they?
I beg your pardon?
McDonald's really moving, aren't they?
Yeah.
They really are. They've been on TV all week long. McDonald's, building every place.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Andy, what about Global? They were having those emergency repairs, we talked to them on
I
Saturday?
just did the certificate and sent it to them. They'll be coming back to us with the NOI.
Okay.
Before we adjourn, Andy, I wanted to say a few more words I had. I'm sorry I was late, Andy. We were stuck in traffic. But I want to welcome aboard Mr. Lauria. We're glad to have you, and I'm hoping that you enjoy being with us. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard, Vincent.
Thank you.
Take that, Vinnie. Thank you, sir. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion. I second it.
That's 24.
Doesn't get you later.
1 second, Ann. Motion to adjourn by Jim Saboni, and second by Nick.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.